The nurse whispered that my dead father had been visiting my wife every night after hours. Plot twist. Turns out ghosts don't need hospital visitor passes, just a corner office and a wedding ring of their own. I stood there in Northern Light Hospital's fluorescent-lit hallway, clutching a wilting bouquet of daisies, while Nurse Maeve, oblivious to the nuclear bomb she'd just dropped, continued adjusting my wife's IV drip. "Your father is such a sweetheart," she continued, patting Daphne's hand. "Comes in every night after 10 when it's quiet. Asked us to keep it hush-hush, but I figured you should know what a caring family you have." My face must have been doing something interesting because Maeve suddenly looked concerned. "You okay, hun? You look like you've seen a ghost." Oh, the irony. If only she knew that according to the death certificate in my filing cabinet, Frederick Sullivan had been fertilizing premium cemetery real estate for exactly 3 years, 4 months, and 16 days. I'm Graham Sullivan, 42, an architect who designs spaces for the living, while apparently missing the paranormal activity happening under my own roof. For 9 blissfully ignorant years, I'd been married to Daphne Everett Sullivan, Portland's most successful luxury real estate agent, and, as I was discovering, Olympic-level deceiver. "That's wonderful," I managed, forcing what must have looked like a stroke victim's smile. "Dad's always been thoughtful like that." Daphne shot me a look that would freeze hell over twice. From her hospital bed, leg elevated in a complicated arrangement of pulleys and casts, she suddenly developed an intense interest in her phone. "Graham, can you grab me another pillow? This one's like sleeping on a sack of doorknobs," she said, clearly desperate to interrupt whatever was happening. The accident that put her here, a tumble down our Craftsman home staircase resulting in a compound fracture, had seemed suspicious from the start. Daphne moved with the precision of a cat burglar, even in heels. The woman once balanced on the edge of our bathtub to kill a spider while wearing 5-inch Louboutins. People like that don't just slip. "Sure thing, honey. Anything for my devoted wife." The word devoted left my mouth dripping with enough sarcasm to fill Lake Michigan. As I wandered down to the nurse's station, my architect brain, trained to notice when things don't align, started connecting dots like a conspiracy theorist with unlimited red string. The work emergencies that had been multiplying faster than rabbits on fertility drugs, the passcode change on her phone that she claimed was for security, the mysterious weekend conference in Seattle where she came back with a tan in February in the Pacific Northwest, the fact that she always smelled like sandalwood after these emergencies, despite claiming to be allergic to cologne. I returned with the pillow, my mind already formulating a blueprint for uncovering whatever structural damage was lurking beneath our marriage's facade. "Here you go," I said, gently lifting her head. "Anything else I can get you? Water, snacks, hidden cameras, divorce papers?" She laughed nervously, clearly missing the latter half of my offerings. "Just the remote. The Bachelor is on tonight, and I need my fix of fictional relationship drama." Ironic, considering our real-life soap opera was developing more plot twists than a M. Night Shyamalan marathon. Back home that night, I poured myself a generous whiskey and started digging. First stop, our joint cell phone account. Scrolling through the call logs revealed a pattern even a kindergartner could spot. Hundreds of calls to the same number, always when I was at work or supposedly asleep. "Seth Preston," my voice echoed in our empty kitchen as I reverse-searched the number. Seth Preston, CEO of Everett and Preston Real Estate, Daphne's boss, married father of 3, and apparently the corporeal replacement for my deceased father. I nearly broke my tumbler slamming it down. Well, shit. The next morning I arrived at the hospital armed with a plan and a small electronic device, disguised as a harmless trinket in a fresh flower arrangement. "Morning, sunshine," I chirped with artificial sweetness. "Brought you daisies and a little bear. Thought he could keep you company when I'm not around." The bear housed a high-definition camera with night vision and motion activation, a $249 investment in marital intelligence gathering. "That's sweet," Daphne said, not even looking up from her laptop. "I'm swamped with the Lake Oswego listing. The Hendersons are being impossible about the closing date." The Lake Oswego listing. Another red flag I'd missed. She'd been obsessed with that property for months, a modernist masterpiece on the water that was way outside what we could afford. Unless, of course, there was another "we" in the picture. "No problem, honey, I'll just set up your little guardian here." I positioned the flower arrangement carefully, ensuring the camera had an unobstructed view of the entire room. Perfect angle. Perfect spot for them. Whatever, she muttered, fingers flying over her keyboard. I kissed her forehead, holding it a beat longer than necessary. Get some rest. Don't want to exhaust yourself before your nighttime visitors. Her fingers froze momentarily before resuming their typing. Gotcha. That night, from the discomfort of our Pottery Barn sofa, I watched live footage on my iPad of room 347. For 3 hours, nothing happened except for nurse checks and Daphne scrolling mindlessly through her phone. I was beginning to think Nurse Maeve had mixed up her patients when, at 10:12 p.m. exactly, the door creaked open. Seth Preston, 6-foot-something of silver-foxed corporate entitlement, slipped in holding a paper bag from that overpriced organic place Daphne loved. Brought your favorite, his baritone voice came through clear as a bell. Mushroom risotto, and that pretentious $15 juice you like. Daphne's face transformed into something I hadn't seen directed at me in years, pure unadulterated adoration. You're saving me from hospital food hell, she said, making grabby hands at the bag. Did you bring the papers too? He produced a manila envelope from his designer messenger bag, all ready for signatures. Once you're out of here next week, we're 48 hours from freedom. My stomach plummeted to somewhere near the center of the earth. What I was witnessing wasn't just an affair, it was an exit strategy. Graham suspects something, Daphne said between bites. Some nurse mentioned your visits, called you my father. Can you believe it? They both exploded into laughter that felt like individual daggers to my chest. Well, I am distinguished enough to be your daddy, Seth joked, earning him a playful slap and a look that was definitely not filial. Did he buy it? Please, Daphne rolled her eyes. Graham would believe me if I told him the sky was green. He's been designing that community center for months, barely notices when I'm not home. The accident bought us the perfect cover to finalize everything. I closed the iPad, unable to watch more. The accident, of course. A self-inflicted insurance policy against suspicion while they dotted the I's and crossed the T's on whatever they were planning. Tomorrow was apparently going to be a very interesting hospital visit. The morning after my late-night surveillance special, I arrived at the hospital carrying a venti americano and what I hoped looked like ignorant marital bliss. Inside, I was nuclear, a controlled meltdown of rage, betrayal, and oddly, a perverse fascination with just how spectacularly my life was imploding. Morning, babe, I chirped with the forced cheerfulness of a Walmart greeter on Black Friday. Sleep well? Daphne glanced up from her phone, the glow of her screen illuminating dark circles under her eyes. Terribly. These beds are medieval torture devices. I perched on the edge of her bed, careful not to jostle her injured leg. That's weird. You looked pretty comfortable during your late-night dinner date. Her fingers froze mid-text. What? The risotto from Wildwood Market. Your favorite. I took a slow sip of coffee. Apparently, hospital food isn't good enough when you're planning your great escape. The color drained from Daphne's face faster than our joint bank account probably would when she enacted whatever exit strategy she had brewing. Graham, I don't know what. Please, I interrupted, channeling my inner disappointed father. At least have the decency not to insult what's left of my intelligence. 9 years of marriage and you couldn't even come up with a better password than your childhood dog's name. Mr. Wiggles isn't exactly Fort Knox. Her phone slipped from her fingers. You went through my phone? Nope. I popped the P for dramatic effect. But thanks for confirming you have something to hide. I did, however, set up a little home entertainment system. I pulled out my iPad and turned it toward her, showing a freeze frame of Seth feeding her risotto with his fingers. Tell me, does Netflix know you're producing your own reality show? The Real Homewreckers of Portland has a nice ring to it. This isn't what it looks like, she stammered, the most unoriginal line in the cheater's handbook. Really? Because it looks exactly like my wife and her boss planning to cash in their affair chips for the jackpot. What was it he said? 48 hours from freedom? Funny. I don't remember filing for divorce, but apparently I'm about to be granted one. The hospital room felt suddenly smaller, as if the walls were closing in on our sham of a marriage. A nurse poked her head in, took one look at our Mexican standoff, and wisely retreated. Lower your voice, Daphne hissed. This is a hospital. And this, I gestured between us, is apparently a funeral for our marriage that only one of us knew was happening. I stood up, suddenly unable to sit still. Were you going to leave a note? Or just vanish like my socks in the dryer? Dear Graham, gone to live my best life with Silver Fox CEO. P.S. I faked falling down the stairs for insurance fraud. It wasn't fraud, she snapped, then immediately realized her mistake. So you admit you didn't accidentally fall. What, did you throw yourself down for sympathy points? A recovery period to get your affairs in order? The accidental pun made me laugh, a hollow sound. Affairs. That's actually pretty good. Daphne's face hardened into the expression I'd seen her use with difficult clients. You don't understand. This marriage has been dead for years. You're never home. Because I'm working on our dream house renovation, the one you begged me to design. I ran my hands through my hair, almost pulling it out in frustration, while apparently you were designing an exit strategy with Portland's most eligible Silver Fox. So if Seth appreciates me, she said, chin raised defiantly, he sees my potential, and apparently several other parts of you, if these videos are any indication. I scrolled through stills from last night's hospital room surveillance. Tell me, does his wife know about his late-night rounds? Dr. Adultery making house calls. Her eyes widened. You wouldn't. Wouldn't what? Tell Mrs. Preston that while she's home helping their kids with homework, her husband is playing doctor with my wife. Or forward these to the hospital board. I'm sure they love knowing their facility doubles as a love nest after hours. Daphne's face crumpled. Not with remorse, I realized, but with calculation. Graham, please, this will ruin everything. Funny how that's suddenly a concern. I pocketed my iPad. By the way, I visited our safety deposit box yesterday. Imagine my surprise when half the contents were missing, including my grandmother's emerald ring, the family heirloom you called gaudy and outdated. She had the decency to look slightly ashamed. I needed startup capital. For what? Your new life? Let me guess, that Lake Oswego listing isn't for clients, it's for you and Dr. McDreamy. Her silence was confirmation enough. 9 years, Daph. 9 years, and you couldn't even be bothered to come up with an original exit strategy. An accident while I'm conveniently at work. Secret meetings in a hospital. It's like you plagiarized your escape plan from a Lifetime movie. I shook my head. I expected better production value from you. A text notification pinged on my phone. From my best friend Marcus. Dude, why is Seth Preston posting about a business trip to Bermuda with his talented partner? Isn't that your wife's boss? I showed Daphne the screen. Subtle. Nothing says we're just colleagues like tropical getaways. We deserved a break after closing the Henderson deal, she said weakly. Right. And I deserve not spending the last 5 years of my life renovating a house for a wife who was renovating her escape route. I moved toward the door. I'm going to the cafeteria. I suggest you use this time to consider how you want this to play out. What does that mean? Her voice had lost its edge, now tinged with something approaching fear. It means I'm giving you the courtesy you never gave me. A choice. Either we handle this like adults or I forward last night's footage to every partner at Everett and Preston, the hospital board, and for good measure, the Preston family Christmas card list. As I reached the door, a silver-haired figure appeared. Seth himself carrying another paper bag of gourmet contraband. He froze when he saw me, his practiced corporate smile faltering. Graham, I was just checking on my top agent. Can't have her laid up too long. The spring market is heating up. He attempted a bro-like shoulder pat that I sidestepped. Seth Preston, man of the hour. I extended my hand, which he took automatically. I gripped it just hard enough to be uncomfortable. Or should I say man of the after hours? Interesting visiting schedule you keep. He extracted his hand, looking between Daphne and me. I'm not sure what you mean. Really? Let me refresh your memory. I pulled up a video on my phone. Seth kissing Daphne's forehead last night, whispering something about our future. I held it up just long enough for recognition to dawn on his face. Dad would be so disappointed in your bedside manner. Seth blanched. Your father? Oh, that's right. You've been playing the role of my deceased dad during visiting hours. Nurse Maeve was quite impressed with your dedication. Tell me, is identity theft part of the CEO package, or is that a special service you provide just for my wife? Daphne made a strangled sound from the bed. Graham, please. No, I interrupted. I want to hear how Seth explains masquerading as a dead man to hospital staff. Seth's corporate mask slipped completely, revealing the panic underneath. Look, Graham, this is all a misunderstanding. Is it? Because my understanding is crystal clear. You're sleeping with my wife, planning to buy a house together and using her accident as cover to finalize your little plan. I checked my watch. I'm heading to the cafeteria for exactly 30 minutes. When I come back, I expect a full explanation from both of you about how this ends, without everyone's reputation in tatters. As I walked out, I heard Daphne hiss at Seth. I told you he was getting suspicious. Seth's reply followed me down the hallway. You said he was clueless, that he spent more time with his blueprints than with you. I smiled grimly. They were right about one thing. I did love my blueprints. And now I was drafting the most important design of my life, the demolition of their perfectly planned future. The hospital cafeteria served coffee that tasted like it had been filtered through a gym sock, but I needed the caffeine. Sitting at a corner table, I watched the institutional clock tick away my self-imposed 30-minute deadline while plotting my next moves like a chess grandmaster with a personal vendetta. My phone buzzed. Marcus again. Dude, you okay? Called your office. They said you took emergency leave. I texted back, remember when we watched that documentary about demolition experts? I'm about to implode my marriage. His response was immediate. On my way, don't do anything until I get there. Remember the Denver incident. The Denver incident. 3 years ago at an architectural conference, I'd caught a colleague stealing my design concepts. Instead of handling it professionally, I'd confronted him publicly, resulting in both of us getting escorted out by security while he screamed about defamation. Lesson learned. Revenge is a dish best served with documentation and witnesses. 27 minutes into my cafeteria exile, Marcus arrived, looking like he'd dressed while falling down an escalator. My best friend since college was Portland's top divorce attorney, a coincidence that suddenly seemed like divine intervention. You look like hell, he said, sliding into the seat across from me. Funny, that's exactly where I've been living since last night. I pushed my iPad across the table. Meet my replacement. Marcus watched 10 seconds of footage before letting out a low whistle. Seth Preston is sleeping with Daphne. That's unexpected. Really? Because apparently everyone but me saw this coming. The nurses think he's my dad, by the way. My dead dad. Your dad's been gone for what, 3 years? 3 years, 4 months and 17 days, but who's counting? I sipped my terrible coffee. They're planning to buy that Lake Oswego house together. She's been siphoning funds from our accounts. The accident was apparently her covering her tracks while they finalize everything. Marcus's attorney mode activated. His posture straightened, eyes sharpened. Graham, listen carefully. Don't confront them again without me present. This isn't just adultery, it's financial fraud. If she's moving assets without your knowledge, we need to document everything before she covers her tracks. Too late. I already had my big dramatic confrontation upstairs. Gave them 30 minutes to come up with an explanation. I checked my watch. Which is up now. Marcus grabbed my wrist. No, we're doing this my way. You're emotionally compromised, and these two are already proving they're comfortable with deception. He pulled out his laptop. First, we lock down what's left of your assets. Then we document everything, and I mean everything. For the next hour, we executed financial triage. Marcus had me change passwords, place fraud alerts, and document every joint account. We discovered Daphne had systematically been moving small amounts, just under $10,000 each time to avoid triggering bank reporting, into a separate account for months. The total nearly gave me an aneurysm. $147,000. That's our renovation fund, I said numbly. For the house I've been killing myself redesigning. The house she apparently has no intention of living in. It gets worse, Marcus said, scrolling through my bank statements. These charges to E&P Business Services? That's a shell company. I've seen it before in another divorce case. It's how Everett and Preston partners hide expenses from their spouses. So I've been funding their affair. Among other things, Marcus grimaced. Look at this, a $22,000 transfer labeled earnest money deposit from last week. The Lake Oswego house. They were already in escrow. I'm going to be sick. I wasn't exaggerating. The room actually tilted. Save it for court, Marcus said firmly. Graham, this is premeditated financial fraud. With what we already have, plus the video evidence of them discussing their plans, we can nail them to the wall. I don't want money. What did I want? Justice? Revenge? My life back? What you want is leverage, Marcus said, reading my mind. And I'm about to give you some. He typed rapidly, then spun his laptop toward me. Meet Candace Preston, Seth's wife of 22 years, mother of their 3 children, board member of Portland Children's Hospital Foundation, and, most relevantly, daughter of Thomas Everett. Everett? As in the Everett in Everett and Preston. Seth married the founder's daughter. If this affair goes public, he doesn't just lose his marriage, he loses his career, his social standing, and probably half the connections he's spent decades building. A plan began forming in my architect's mind, not a mere remodel, but a complete structural redesign of this situation. I need to make a phone call, I said, standing abruptly. To whom? Graham, we need to be strategic here. Oh, I'm being strategic, I replied, already dialing. I'm calling in the nuclear option. 20 minutes later, I walked back into Daphne's hospital room, with Marcus trailing behind me. Seth and Daphne were huddled together, whispering urgently. They sprang apart when we entered. Graham, Daphne began, her voice conciliatory. We've been talking and— Save it, I interrupted. I'd like to introduce Marcus Teller, my attorney, and longtime friend, who, coincidentally, just got off the phone with Candace Preston. Seth's face went from country club tan to morgue-ready pale in seconds. You called my wife? No, Marcus did. They're on the same hospital foundation board. Small world, right? I smiled pleasantly. Even smaller when Marcus mentioned he was representing me in a case involving you. She was very interested to hear more over lunch tomorrow. You can't do this, Seth said, his CEO authority evaporating like cheap cologne. Actually, I can, but I'm willing to discuss terms. I sat in the visitor's chair, suddenly feeling calmer than I had in months. Here's how this plays out. Daphne, you'll transfer every penny you've moved from our accounts back by end of business today. You'll sign a post-nuptial agreement that Marcus is drafting right now. You'll withdraw any offer on the Lake Oswego property. And Seth, you'll be tendering your resignation as CEO, effective immediately. That's insane, Seth sputtered. You can't force me to resign. I'm not. But I suspect when the board, including your father-in-law, sees video evidence of you discussing insurance fraud and misappropriation of company resources to facilitate your affair with an employee, they might have some thoughts on the matter. Daphne found her voice. Graham, please, we can work this out privately, like how you've been privately planning your exit for months. I leaned forward. Here's what fascinates me. You two thought you were so clever, but you documented everything. The texts, the emails, the transfers with obvious descriptions like house fund. It's like you wanted to get caught. Or, Marcus interjected, they were so arrogant they never thought they would be. Seth's phone rang. He glanced at it, sweat beading on his forehead. It's Candace. You should answer that, I suggested. I hear ignoring your spouse never ends well. As Seth stepped into the hallway for his call of doom, I turned back to Daphne. One more thing. My grandmother's ring. It's in my jewelry box at home, she said quietly, hidden compartment in the bottom. Of course it was. The irony of hiding a stolen family heirloom in a box I had custom-built for our 5th anniversary wasn't lost on me. You know what the worst part is? I asked, not really expecting an answer. I would have given you everything if you'd just been honest. The house, the money, even a divorce. But you chose this. I gestured around the hospital room. A literal broken leg to cover your metaphorical tracks. Seth returned, looking like he'd aged a decade in 5 minutes. Candace knows. Not everything, I clarified. Just enough to ensure your cooperation. The rest depends on what happens in the next 24 hours. What do you want? His voice was hollow, defeated. I smiled, feeling the architect in me fully embrace this demolition project. I want what everyone wants, Seth. A clean slate. And I'm about to get one, at your expense. The next 24 hours unfolded like a perfectly executed architectural plan, each element precisely placed, every support beam of leverage strategically positioned. By noon the following day, our joint accounts had mysteriously regained $147,623.19, the exact amount Daphne had siphoned, plus interest. My grandmother's emerald ring reappeared on my dresser, wrapped in a post-it note with a hastily scrawled, "Sorry." As apologies go, it had all the emotional depth of a kiddie pool in a drought. Marcus worked his legal magic, drafting a post-nuptial agreement that would make King Solomon wince. Daphne signed it without argument, her signature as shaky as her moral compass. The document essentially stated that in the event of divorce, which was about as eventual as sunrise at this point, she forfeited any claim to our home, my architecture practice, and anything else she might have once considered partially hers. That's the most one-sided post-nup I've ever drafted, Marcus admitted as we left his downtown office. She didn't even read it before signing. Amazing what the threat of public humiliation can accomplish, I replied, feeling the weight on my shoulders lighten for the first time in days. Any word on Seth? Marcus checked his phone. According to my contact at ENP, he called an emergency board meeting this morning, announced he was stepping down to spend more time with family, the corporate equivalent of "my dog ate my career." I laughed, an actual genuine laugh that surprised even me. Let me guess, effective immediately. Cleaned out his office by 10 a.m. There's a rumor he's taking a position with a smaller firm in Boise. Boise? That's like sending an NBA star to the miners in Antarctica. Exactly. And the Lake Oswego property? The selling agent received notice that the buyers are withdrawing their offer, cited unforeseen circumstances. Unforeseen circumstances, I repeated, like getting caught with your hand in the company cookie jar, and your boss's wife. We stopped at a craft brewery to toast my impending freedom. 2 IPAs in, Marcus asked the question I'd been avoiding. So what happens with Daphne now? I swirled the amber liquid in my glass, watching it catch the light like my life in free fall. She's being discharged tomorrow. According to the paperwork, she's coming home. To your house? After everything? Temporarily. The post-nup includes a clause that she has 60 days to find alternate accommodations. I'm not heartless enough to dump a woman with a broken leg on the street. I took another sip. Even if she did break it herself as a cover story. Marcus shook his head. You're a better man than me. Or a bigger sucker. I shrugged. Either way, it's just logistics now. The next morning I arrived at the hospital with a wheelchair and a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. Daphne sat on the edge of her bed, already dressed in athleisure wear that probably cost more than most people's entire wardrobes. Your chariot awaits, I announced, rolling the wheelchair forward. She looked up, her expression an uncomfortable mix of shame, resentment, and calculation. Graham, Save it for the car, I interrupted. Hospital hallways have surprisingly good acoustics. Wouldn't want to entertain the staff with more of our drama. The ride home passed in uncomfortable silence, broken only by the occasional navigation prompt from my phone. As we turned onto our street in the West Hills, Daphne finally spoke. I never meant to hurt you. I nearly drove into a mailbox. Really? That's the line you're going with? 9 years of marriage and you're pulling dialogue from a daytime soap opera? It's the truth, she insisted. Things just happened. Things don't just happen, Daphne. Earthquakes happen. Tax audits happen. Planning an elaborate exit strategy with your married boss while systematically draining our accounts is a choice. Several choices, actually, made repeatedly over months. I pulled into our driveway and killed the engine. The house, my architectural pride and joy that I'd spent 5 years renovating, loomed before us like a mausoleum for our dead marriage. Home sweet home, I muttered. For one of us, anyway. Getting Daphne and her cast inside was an awkward dance of resentment and reluctant assistance. Once she was settled on the living room couch, I brought her crutches, water, medication, and the television remote, arranged precisely on the coffee table. There's food in the fridge. Your medication schedule is on the kitchen counter. I've set up a bell if you need anything. I stepped back, admiring my caretaking setup with professional detachment. Any questions? She looked around. Where will you be? Not here. I grabbed a pre-packed duffel bag from the entryway. I'm staying at Marcus's guest house until you find a new place. The security cameras are active, inside and out. Any visitors will be recorded. I smiled thinly. Just so you're aware, you're leaving me alone? With a broken leg? Her incredulity was almost comical. Ironic, isn't it? Almost as ironic as paying for the renovation of a house you were planning to abandon. I shrugged. Don't worry. I've arranged for a home health aide to check on you daily. Her name is Beatrice. She's 67 and, according to her references, has no patience for foolishness. You'll get along great. Daphne's face crumpled. I didn't want it to end like this. No, I agreed. You wanted it to end with me clueless while you rode off into the sunset with Seth and my grandmother's ring. Life's disappointing that way. As I turned to leave, my phone buzzed with an email notification. I checked it, then let out a laugh that echoed through our vaulted ceiling. Something funny? Daphne asked. Just an email from Candace Preston. She's inviting me to join the Portland Children's Hospital Foundation Board. I showed her the screen. Apparently there's an opening since Seth had to resign all his positions before relocating to, where was it again? Boise. The color drained from Daphne's face. Boise? Seth is moving to Idaho. Oh, you didn't know? Yes, it seems his father-in-law was quite insistent that he take a position with their smallest satellite office. Something about focusing on family priorities in a less distracting environment. I slipped my phone back into my pocket. Tough break. Idaho is lovely, I hear, in winter and summer, and every season really if you enjoy potatoes and isolation. He was supposed to... She stopped herself, but not quickly enough. Take you with him, to your dream home on Lake Oswego. I tisked sympathetically. Plans change, Daph. Sometimes people aren't who you thought they were. Sometimes your security blanket turns out to be your boss pretending to be your husband's dead father in a hospital room. I picked up my bag again. Beatrice will be here at 4. Try not to break any more bones between now and then. Our insurance premiums are high enough already. As I reached the door, Daphne called out, "How did you know, really? What tipped you off?" I turned, hand on the doorknob. "Besides the nurse outing your nighttime visitor as my 3 years dead father?" She nodded. "You stopped laughing at my jokes," I said simply. 6 months ago. We were watching that stupid comedy special you picked, and I made some comment about the guy's tie looking like a crime scene. You used to laugh at everything I said, even the dumb stuff. That night you just stared at your phone. I knew then something was wrong, I just didn't know how spectacularly wrong. I opened the door, Portland's persistent drizzle, creating an appropriately dramatic backdrop for my exit. "Goodbye, Daphne. Enjoy the house. For the next 60 days, anyway." The door closed behind me with a satisfying click, the sound of one chapter ending and another, hopefully less ridiculous one, about to begin. 6 months later, I stood in front of the Lake Oswego property that had nearly become the love nest for my ex-wife and her silver-haired Romeo. The "For Sale" sign now sported a bright red "Sold" sticker, courtesy of my real estate agent, not Everett and Preston. "Congratulations, Mr. Sullivan," said the agent, handing me the keys. "It's all yours." I weighed the keyring in my palm, savoring the poetic justice. "Thanks, Vivian. Never thought spite could be such a powerful motivator for real estate investment." Vivian laughed nervously, probably wondering if she should include me in her Christmas card list or her list of clients to approach with caution. "It's a wonderful property. The previous owners are devastated they had to let it go." "I bet they are," I murmured, knowing the previous owners were the elderly couple who'd accepted Seth and Daphne's offer before everything imploded. "Any word on what happened to the other interested buyers?" Vivian shuffled uncomfortably. "I heard rumors that one party had financing issues, something about a job relocation to Idaho, I think." "Fascinating," I replied, suppressing a smile that threatened to crack my face. "Well, their loss is my architectural playground." As Vivian drove away, Marcus pulled up in his Tesla, looking every bit the successful attorney that he was. "You actually bought it," he said, surveying the modernist masterpiece overlooking the lake. "When you said you were considering it, I thought the bourbon was doing the talking. What can I say? I'm a sucker for waterfront views and karmic retribution." I jangled the keys. "Want the grand tour of Casa Revenge?" We walked through the empty rooms, our footsteps echoing against hardwood floors and floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the lake like living paintings. "So what's the plan?" Marcus asked as we stood on the back deck. "You moving in?" I shook my head. "No, I'm converting it into a retreat for divorced men, a place to regroup, get financial and legal advice, maybe some therapy, with a woodworking shop and a screening room for terrible action movies." Marcus stared at me. "You're kidding. Only about the action movies. The rest is real." I leaned against the railing. "The divorce rate in this country is still hovering around 40%. Might as well monetize misery, everyone else does." "That's actually brilliant," Marcus admitted, "and completely unexpected. Unlike my ex-wife's affair, which apparently everyone saw coming except me." I took a deep breath of lake air. "Speaking of Daphne, heard she's selling luxury condos in Seattle now." "Territorial change was smart," Marcus nodded. "Portland real estate circles aren't exactly welcoming after the Preston debacle." The Preston debacle had become something of a legend in local business circles. Seth's hasty departure to Everett and Preston's satellite office in Boise had triggered a succession crisis, eventually leading to Candace Preston taking over as CEO, a plot twist no one saw coming, especially Seth. Turned out Thomas Everett's daughter had been waiting in the wings for years, held back only by nepotism concerns and her husband's ego. "And Seth?" I asked, though I already knew from my quarterly Schadenfreude Google searches. Still in Boise, still married to Candace. Apparently selling tract homes to potato farmers isn't quite the prestigious career cap he envisioned. Marcus chuckled. Candace visits monthly, separately maintains a condo in Portland. Draw your own conclusions. I laughed. Marriage is truly a complex architectural structure. Some are built on solid foundations, others on quicksand disguised as marble. Deep thoughts from a man who just purchased his almost replacement home out of spite. Not spite, I corrected. Evolution. 6 months ago, I was a trusting husband, renovating a house for a future that didn't exist. Today, I'm the owner of Fresh Start Lodge, helping other men rebuild after their own demolitions. We clinked our impromptu housewarming beers, grocery store IPAs drunk straight from the bottles, like the sophisticated professionals we pretended to be. You know what the weirdest part is? I mused, watching the sunset paint the lake copper and gold. I'm actually happier now. I sleep better. I work better. Turns out, living with someone plotting your financial and emotional demise takes a toll. And dating? Marcus wiggled his eyebrows like a bad vaudeville comedian. Please tell me you're back in the game. Slow down, counselor. One renovation project at a time. I gestured around us. Though Vivian, the real estate agent, did suggest coffee next week. Apparently my unique perspective on property ownership is intriguing. Just don't show her your spite house on the first date. Investment property, I corrected with mock seriousness. And I'll have you know living well is the best revenge. In this case, living in the house your ex-wife wanted to share with her lover might qualify as both. As the light faded over Lake Oswego, I couldn't help but reflect on the absurd journey of the past year. From architect of buildings to architect of my own reconstruction. From clueless husband to owner of a investment property dedicated to helping others navigate similar catastrophes. Life's blueprint rarely follows the original design. Sometimes the foundation cracks. Sometimes your contractor runs off with your client. And sometimes, if you're paying attention, you can build something better from the rubble. My father would have appreciated the irony, and unlike Seth Preston, he wouldn't have needed to pretend to be someone else to leave his mark.